Good day, guys. We're back. This stream is a continuation. This stream is a continuation of yesterday's stream. And we're going to talk about the untold story of Native Americans. This is Andrés Reséndez book review on Native Americans. He is a professor at the University of California. Tap in. Tap in, we here. It's time for the truth to be told. One of the many truths. So, if you're not on any of my social medias, I'm streaming currently on YouTube, TikTok, and IG. So you can tap in the bio with any one of those. I'm gonna let the music play, and when I hit about the 5-minute mark, I'm gonna tap in. So stay tuned. This is going to be a continuation of as discussing Native American history, and I'm reviewing Andrés Reséndez book review. Welcome to my stream. Welcome to my stream. Also, you can support our mission by donation via Cash App. That's the Cash App on the screen. Let your voice be heard. The more finances that I receive, the more I'm empowered to make videos, buy books, better equipment, things of that nature. $5, $10, it helps. Pass around the collection plate and let your dollars be heard. One thing I know is that when that's not constructive, we don't have a problem spending money on. If a person want to go to the liquor store, there is no problem with spending $100 at the liquor store. If they're going to the dispensary, it's no problem spending money at the dispensary. But sometimes when people ask for donations or money for something that's constructive, we start pocket watching, right? When I ask for likes on my videos, sometimes people don't want to give likes on my videos. Listen, the like button is free, baby. Go ahead and tap in. So thank you for anybody that's watching. That's also important. We're going to talk about the untold story of Native Americans. Welcome to my stream. We're going to let the music vibe and set the mood for a little bit. I'll be right back. Stay tuned. Okay, guys, thank you for letting the room build up. On today's broadcast, we're going to do a book review on Andrés Reséndez, The Other Slavery. And the reason that I want to do this book review is that I read the book and we're going to jump right into where we left off yesterday. Let me pause the music. We're going to jump right into where we left off yesterday, and we're talking about things that's in our culture that we inherited. So check this out. This is a rehash from some of the things we covered yesterday, guys. Slaves are given brands on their face to distinguish them from slaves by just wars and Indians who were enslaved by other Indians. And what this made me think about was this. Now, this is before my time, but this was when Prince was in conflict with his labels and he wrote this word on his face. And it also made me think of this, how face tattoos, they've always been in existence, but you can see how the history of where we come from and the things that we experience, even with people who. So one of the things that I was talking about is that in uh the Untold Story of Native Americans by Andrés Reséndez, one of the things we talked about is the facial tattoos, and we talked about how 400 or 500 years ago that this practice was used to identify people that was in servitude. So this was very enlightening to me because I don't think that a lot of people really understand this. And I also want to talk about uh, the role of Melanichi right quick. So I'm just rehashing some of the things that we covered yesterday. If you wasn't able to catch the broadcast, this was some of the things that we talked about yesterday. Okay. So Hernan Cortez, when he gets to the Americas, okay, what ends up happening is that Hernan Cortez is going to be the person accredited for conquering the people known as the Aztecs, okay? And so what happens is King Montezuma is in Mexico City. King Montezuma is in Mexico City and Tenochtitlan. And basically Hernan Cortez is going to get with rival tribes and he's going to convince them to rage against the machine and go after the throne. Okay, so these are some of the things that we were talking about yesterday. We're talking about what was going on during the time of the conquistadors. Okay, so I'm going to rehash uh, maybe one or two more clips before I set the tone for today's broadcast, continuing the education. Native Americans in Spain will begin to find themselves in the courts, and they're going to start protesting their freedoms. Um, in the Spanish enslaving the Native Americans, they favored to enslave the women over the men. So it was like 2 to 1 compared to the African slave trade, which was going on simultaneously, right? It was 2 males to every 1 female, but in the Native American slavery, it was 2 females to every 1 male. So they would take these Native Americans and they would ship them to Spain and Europe and put them in servitude, and they were being sent there to be domestics. They were sent there to be domestics, guys. Now, why is this conversation important. Why is this conversation important? What is the significance of me discussing what took place in the past and how can we learn from it? Well, one, we have to study the past in order not to make the same mistakes that people who came before us made. Okay, we have to learn from the past. So one of the things we talked about yesterday, we talked about caste systems, right? And a lot of people may or may not know this, but we inherited a lot of our belief systems from colonial Spain, right? Because Spain was controlling the United States before the United States became the United States. So I'm going to share a tab, right? So on the map that you're seeing, and I could use this map right here because it highlights it better. All of the green is what during this time period what was controlled by what they call New Spain. Okay, all of the green areas. And then if you look on the far left of your screen, you're going to see the Asian world, right? And so Spain was the first people from Europe to build a vast empire in the Americas. So it's quite natural why we inherited some of the way that the Spanish ruled. And one of the things that the Spanish created that I'm going to discuss on this broadcast is they created a caste system where the pensadores, that's people that's from Spain, they're going to be at the top of the food chain. Then they're going to have multiple racial categories. So in modern times, when you go to fill out a job or you're filling out anything that belongs to the state, you have to identify your ethnic background, your race. Okay. Even though term race, it really means winner and loser. When you're in the race, you have winners and losers. Okay. Now, I'm doing this broadcast. I do not promote discrimination of any kind. I think that everybody should receive justice, and the person who needs justice the most should receive it. But historically, the group that I have been assigned to have been historically discriminated against. Well, what I want to talk about is in this broadcast, we're going to review why that is. Now, the black people and the people known as Latinos in this country have a shared history, guys. They have a shared history because during this time period, Africans was being shipped to, let me show you the map. Where is the map? Africans are being shipped from West Africa and Europe to the Americas. So they was being shipped to, let me show you. So they were being shipped to Cuba, that's the big long island. They was being shipped to Hispaniola at that time, which is Haiti and the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Colombia, and they was also being shipped to Costa Rica, Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico, and all of these other places. So all of the places that the people that's known as Latinos inhabited was just really means that they are people who, when the United States and Mexico went to war, they remained in the countries where Spanish was dominant. If these same people were in the northern part of the hemisphere, which became the United States, after the battle between the Spanish American War, these people would be speaking English like I'm speaking. Okay, so we have a shared history, you guys. We have a shared history. So what I want to go to in this tab is I want to talk about this shared history. So stay with me, and we are the result of this. And so this is why certain people we we are put in a situation where it's a misunderstanding, it's a conflict, even though in all actuality we are at minimum cousins, and at maximum, if you really want to be honest, family. Now that's a deep topic, but a lot of people don't want to say that because, hey, if my family not treating me good, I'm not gonna rock with them either. But if you go back to what we were talking about, you would see that the Africans were being trafficked. You would see that the Africans were being trafficked to the New World also. Okay, guys. Now, why am I sharing this? Well, we have to have a certain framework to understand. Okay. Now, I'm going to play another video in modern times. Okay. In modern times to show you validity of what I'm saying. Because either what I'm saying is true or is false. This video is not to be emotional. This video is not to put anyone in the position to say who's better or who's this or who's that. This video is so we can learn from the mistakes of the past and we could create a better future. So this lady in this video, although she may appear to be something, watch what she says. Now, this is how the systems that we inherited affect us today.
Like for those of you that don't know me, I'm an immigrant, right? I immigrated from Brazil like almost 10 years ago now, and I clean Airbnbs for a living. And I arrived to one of my job sites today, and there's a car with a California permanent fleet sticker on the plate, which, if you don't know, that's an undercover ICE car. And I'm sorry, I'm trying not to be too, like. And then today I had to, and I never thought I was gonna have to do this, but today I had to text my friends, being like, please check on me later, because please just like make sure I'm still here. And this is so inhumane. Like, I'm scared of going to do my own fucking job because I'm scared that they're gonna be waiting there to check my paper.
Okay, guys. Now that's very deep. First of all, I'm sorry that this sister is going through this. Actually, that's very sad. That doesn't make me feel good that she's going through that. Now, people on that video left some really mean comments. I wonder if I should get into that. They left some really mean comments. Let me show you what they said. Where's the video? Where's the comments? Comments. Bye bye. Get out. If you have papers, you don't have anything to worry about. Stop the victim mentality. If you are illegal, then bye. You had 10 years to get your ish fixed. Okay, guys. So, so let me move on to our topic. That is just a little bit how our relationships of the past impact us uh, to this day. So I showed you the historical significance of facial tattoos, which I'll play that again because I thought that that was really deep. It talks about slaves are given brands on their face to distinguish them from slaves by just wars and Indians who were enslaved by other Indians. And what this made me think about was this. Now, this is before my time, but this was when Prince was in conflict with his labels and he wrote this word on his face. And it also made me think of this, how face tattoos, they've always been in existence, but you can see how the history of where we come from and the things that we experience, even with people who, and I was going to people that's incarcerated or known for getting facial tattoos. Now that we know what we're going to talk about, and we talked about facial tattoos, we talked about the role of Melanichi and the fall of the Aztec Empire, which I'm going to cover that too. I just want to set the tone because when I get rolling, some of the students wasn't in class yesterday, right? And so I'm still learning. So I'm just giving you the information that I learned and how it relates to us today. And so I'm doing a recap of what you missed yesterday so that when I get into the topic today, you will be able to follow with me, okay? Okay. So Hernan Cortez, when he gets to the Americas, okay, what ends up happening is that Hernan Cortez is going to be the person accredited for conquering the people known as the Aztecs, okay? And so what happens is King Montezuma is in Mexico City. King Montezuma is in Mexico City and Tenochtitlan. And basically, Hernan Cortez is going to get with rival tribes, and they are going to. He's going to convince them to rage against the machine and go after the throne. Okay, okay, guys. So I think that sets the tone. Okay, I think that set the tone. I think that set the tone. So moving along. I want you to look at this map. This map is everything that the Spanish Empire uh conquered. Okay. Now the Spanish had what was called the doctrine of discovery. The doctrine of discovery was basically what they were saying is that everything. Let me go to the. You can't see it, but see right here in this area, these little islands that's off the coast of Spain is called Cape Verde and the Azores Islands. Okay. And they saying that everything that is west, so that's all of everything that's green, belongs to them. And so the Portuguese, they own the ports in Azores and Cape Verde. Now, a famous person that's Cape Verdean is people like Amber Rose. She is of Cape Verdean descent, but you can see how physically how she looks. That you can see that she has been mixed with um the people from Europe. Okay, so they are going to come to the New World, and anyone that doesn't want to convert, they are going to be put into subjugation. Uh, King Charles is king at the time, and then later King Philip is going to inherit this. Now, hold on. I want you to keep in mind the green arrows that's in the circle box that's in the Asian world. So that is the Philippines, right? And some islands that's right off the coast of the Philippines. These people are going to be shipped to New Spain as well. Okay, so this is why a lot of Hispanic people they have Asiatic look to them. Part of the reason. Now, what I also want to talk about is that people have been traveling to the New World way before colonization. Colonization is just documenting what was going on with the Euros at the time. Okay, so we left off yesterday saying that they had the Mixing War, which was fought by the Native Americans to try to end slavery. We discussed that slaves were given brands on their face to distinguish them from just wars and Indians who were enslaved by other Indians. Okay. The Spaniards are going to claim that the Indians were practicing a form of enslavement before the Europeans arrived. Bartholomew de las Casas wanted to end this institution when he came here, but he did not have a power to enforce it. So what they're going to do is they're going to create what's called the encomiendas, right? The encomiendas was the first plantation system that was put in place, where basically they said that um if you do not practice, if you do not submit to this system that we're creating, if you do not submit to this system that we're creating, if you do not submit to this system that we're creating, then you're going to be put into further categories. So I'm going to break down the caste system, or casta systema as they called it. So you had the Peninsulars. So that was the people that was born in Spain. Okay. You had the Creoles. That's the people from Spain, from New Spain, who had Spanish parents. Okay. Then you had the Mestizos. These are people that are Spanish mixed with Native American. Now, Native American is a tricky word because it doesn't, basically, I'm just going to tell you the truth. The people that were black were also in this Native American category. But what ends up happening is the people that's Native American Indians and the people that's brought up from Africa or the Caribbean are said to be have brought from Africa and the Caribbean. They're going to be the Native Americans, and the people from Africa and the Caribbean are going to be the lowest on this totem pole. So the mixed people, the people whose parents come from Spain, and the people who are born in Spain are going to be above these people. So what happened in this time frame is that these people were treated so badly that they didn't want to be associated with being Native American or being from Africa or the Caribbean. Okay. Now they had rebellions in Africa. I mean, not in Africa, in the Americas, and the rebellions, um they actually have statues of these people rebelling against it. So they're going to create what was called the encomienda system. So the encomienda is basically where you have to work on the land. Okay, you have to work the land, and you belong to the Spanish crown. Okay, all right. Now, what I want you guys to think about is how this affects us today. So, what was going on in Spain is that new people are going to start coming to the Americas. So they follow this guy. In chapter 3, he talks about, he names it the trafficker and his network. So Luis de Carvajal is going to become a governor in Spain. He grows up on the coast of Africa working with the Portuguese, and as a boy, he's brought to Portugal because he was part of the people who practiced Judaism who was expelled from Spain because of the Alhambra decree. So if you know about the Alhambra decree, this was a decree in 1491 that said that if you did not convert to Catholicism and you were practiced Judaism, or you were Moors, or you practiced Islam, that you either had to convert or you had to leave Spain. So this guy, Luis de Carvajal, he is going to be one of these people that was escaping the Spanish Inquisition, but he was considered to be like the current president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, a person who is of Jewish descent or practice Judaism. So he is working off the coast of Africa with the Portuguese as a young boy. So he begins to get into the trafficking network. So he's working in Azores and the Cape Verde Islands with the Portuguese, and then he's going to find himself in the New World. Okay. When he goes to the New World, he begins trafficking Native Americans in Mexico City. Okay, and this is in 1567. Now, at this time when all of this is going on, I want you guys to keep in mind that when this trade was going on, that it was people being sent from this part of the world, the Americas, to Spain and Africa, and you had people from Africa and Europe being sent to the New World. Okay, it was a back and forth. Uh, it was a back and forth trade that was going on, okay? And I'm going to show you this by telling you what was taking place. So we're going to have to recap again, okay?
Native Americans in Spain will begin to find themselves in the courts, and they're going.
So the Native Americans are going to go to Spain, okay? And he talks about this. And he's going to name their names and what was going on with them. So when the Native Americans get to Spain, they are going to try to sue for their freedoms in the Spanish courts. And this was taking place in Valencia, Spain. They're going to try to sue for their freedom. But a lot of these people was either taken as children from the Americas. Okay, I want you to follow me from because I never learned this in school. Okay, no, you know what I'm saying. Nobody ever taught me this in school. Okay, so we're learning from Andrés Reséndez, and we got to give credit where credit is due. This is a book review by him, and it's a fabulous book, you guys. I'm not trying to take credit for his work or anything. I'm just, a student that's learning as we go. So stay tuned and check this out.
To start protesting their freedoms. Um, in the Spanish enslaving the Native Americans, they favored to enslave the women over the men. So it was like 2 to 1 compared to the African slave trade, which was going on simultaneously, right? It was 2 males to every 1 female, but in the Native American slavery, it was 2 females to every 1 male. So they would take these Native Americans and they would ship them to Spain and Europe and put them in servitude, and they were being sent there to be.
They were sent there to be domestics. Now, um, he follows he follows different people in the book where he talks about their names and where they came from. And so we don't necessarily realize how deep this let me go to one of my live streams. We really don't realize how deep some of this history really is because we aren't really taught these things in regards to what was taking place. Okay, so let me rehash some of this and hold on, let me share this tab. So going back to Louis de Carvajal, he's going to come to the Americas and he started going to get these Native Americans in Mexico City. Okay, and then this is in 1567. So this is about 40 years after Cortez conquered Mexico City from the Aztecs or King Moctezuma. Okay, so he is going to talk about the Panuco people who were transported to Cuba and Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And later, when this was stopped, they went to the silver mines of Mexico. So what's going to happen is they're going to find silver in Mexico. And when they find silver in Mexico, it's going to make the people that's when they find silver in Mexico, it's going to make the people that's ruling Spain not want to end slavery because they were the problem that the monarchy of Spain was having was the Native Americans never declared war on the Spaniards. These people were in their own land, and foreigners came to their land and tried to impose or did impose their religion, their way of life, their customs on them, and they wasn't adversaries to the Catholic Church. So they couldn't really justify the servitude that they were in, but they wanted the resources from the land. So Bartholomew de las Casas, about 60 years prior to this, he's going to make an argument that they should go and traffic people from Africa. Why did he say that? He said that because they were already at war with people from Africa because the Moors were ruling Spain. They had already been fighting people from Africa. They had already been in contact with people from Africa. Okay, so I need you guys to understand this, and let me show you something right quick while we on the subject. Okay, let's go. The Morocco-Spain border. This is something that we gotta understand. All right, because a lot of times, man, this when you look at Spain, where is Gibraltar, and then you look at like Tangier, or basically what I'm trying to tell you is Spain and what they consider to be Africa is separated. Guys, check this. Check the distance. Let's go to AI. Check this. 5 miles. 6 miles. Okay? And they said the total length of Morocco-Spain land border is approximately 11.5 miles. The shortest distance between the land along the Strait of Gibraltar separating mainland Spain from Morocco is approximately 8.9 miles. And this is a maritime border, meaning it is a water border, not a land border. So why am I saying this? I'm sorry. I don't mean to get too activated, but why am I saying this? If you know, you know, right? What I'm saying is that people in Spain and people in Africa had already been having contact with each other, guys. The border between Morocco and Spain at its maritime border is 8.9 miles. And in I don't know how to pronounce this city, but it's 5 miles. And another part of the border is 6.7 miles, guys. Okay. So a lot of times when people bring up this history, they're called Afrocentric. They're said that people look at things as though people like me that's speaking on this subject, even though I have a college degree and I went to school for this, when we talk about this history, we're labeled things. So let me play a video, guys. Let me share this tab and play a video from yesterday's live stream breaking this stuff down. The Romanist Pontifex is going to be the blueprint for conquest, okay? And so Pope Nicholas V issues the Papal Bull. Now, this is before colonization, but they already had it in mind in 1455. They got here in 1492. So they stated that anyone that they conquered could be reduced their persons to perpetual slavery, okay? And this was the first of the Papal Bulls of discovery orders by the infallible Pope to enslave the non-Christians, okay? Now, a lot of people don't know this, okay? A lot of people don't know this. A lot of people do know this. And so what the author is going to discuss is what happens in these early years, okay? All right. So now that we know about the caste system, now we know about the border of Spain, now we know how close it is to Morocco. Now we could get into the discussion, okay? Now we could get into the discussion because if you don't have a reference point, some of the stuff I'm going to tell you may sound like fiction. It may sound like when I say, oh, the people were being trafficked from the Americas to Spain, or if I say that a lot of the people that was coming to Spain from Europe were actually people that would be labeled as black, that some of the people that was doing these things were also black, okay? But they were in a system where, let me go back to the caste system. They were in a system where they had a rank, okay? It was these people had a social order, right? So a lot of times, people that would be labeled as um lower than the Peninsulares, they still physically may have looked like a person of color. Okay, and you know this by just looking at what was going on in Spain at the time. Okay, all right, you got to stay with me. So they had these Native Americans named Panuco. Okay, now let me Google them so um we can share them. Indians. Doo doo doo. So okay, they had the Panuco people. Okay, now soon as you now soon as you put this, I mean show this, you're going to see they have some of these images. Okay, now I wanted to show you too how close Morocco is to Spain, because this is what the war started in Europe. Okay, the race war started in Europe, guys. Okay, and they brought it to the Americas. All right, so let me put my tunes back on. So what was going on is that these people was fighting, then they found silver here. King Philip wanted to get the people to work, but they didn't want to call it servitude. So they called it the encomienda system. Now, encomienda, let me research with the definition that they used for it. It says the encomienda system was a labor system established by the Spanish crown in the Americas during the early colonial period. It involved gathering, granting Spanish settlers known as encomenderos the right to demand tribute and forced labor from indigenous people living in the specific area. So it was about the extraction of labor and tribute, Christianization, forced labor, abuse, social hierarchy, population decline. Now, why does this sound familiar? Well, because we're living in a system that shares similarities to this. So it's not necessarily a numbers thing, meaning that you can have a minority in this group, but they were granted access to own the labor of the many. So you have the many working for the few. Okay. Now stay with me. Stay with me, okay? Because we gotta get through this. The only difference was on paper it was not considered slavery. In practice, it was still slavery, forcing men and women to work against their will in the mines of Mexico. Then we had the Chicha Mech Wars. Okay. We had people like the Zacatecas, the Guanajuatos, Durango, Mazapil, and others resisted. This came to be known as the Chicomet Wars. Okay, what's going to happen is when one of the priests is going to be told by Carvajal, Louis de Carvajal, to get the Native Americans to convert. When they tried to convert, what he ends up doing is later capturing them and forcing them to work against their will. Later, he's going to get his family to come to the New World from Spain. And what ends up happening is the Spanish Inquisition is going to capture his niece, nephew, and the rest of his family, and then they're going to be taken to the stake. Okay, the stake. Okay, and due to his high position, he isn't going to be unalive, but they're going to make him abandon his position as governor, and he's going to be exiled from New Spain because they didn't want people who practice Judaism in the Americas, right? And so Most people never heard of the the Chichimec Wars. Okay, so a lot of times, guys, when a lot of people talk about what was going on in the Americas, they have this ideal that people from Europe just came to the to Mexico or Central America, and in 2 days they took it over. That's not how it happened, guys. It was a gradual process. Take a little bit of land here, live here. Take land here, live here, and then what ends up happening is the illnesses that's brought over from Spain is going to have devastating consequences on the indigenous people. Okay. Later on, what's going to happen is the Native Americans are going to find silver. What ends up happening, according to that, the Native Americans who are able to trade with the Europeans are going to start getting things like horses, firearms, and then they're going to start going to war against other Native Americans. Okay, so whoever can get resources from the people from Europe, they're going to then go to war against other Native Americans who don't have the technology. Okay, and so the reason that we're able to be dominated is because we're off code. We are off code. Okay. We're dominated because we don't have a code. We don't have a system put in place to say, hey, we're going to protect ourselves. Right. But the people that came here already had a classified system. They already had a system put in place on or the class, this and that. So the people that are oppressed are fighting among other. Now, why am I saying this? Why am I saying this? Because this has far-reaching consequences. Okay, so Bartholomew, okay, he goes in and talks about King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella in 1492, and they signed the capitulations of Santa Fe. Okay, so what for, Columbus asked Columbus asked the King and Queen of Spain, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, he asked them for honors, which would basically be like a stock option today in the stock market, guys. He said, hey guys, I'm going to go over here, but I want basically three things. One, I want a third of everything that we conquered. Okay, the next thing he asked for is that he would be made into a nobleman, basically that he would get a rank that he could pass down to his heirs, and that his children's would be able to receive inheritance off of his name after they go to the Americas and conquer it. Okay, so they already had a system put in place, guys. That's the point that I'm trying to get to. All right, they already had a system put in place, a plan of what they were going to do. Later on, they're going to start giving um, trade to certain Native American groups to pin against other Native American groups. And so what happens is on the border of New Mexico and Mexico, they are going to find silver mines in Chihuahua, Mexico. Okay, and this is actually the home of Pancho Villa, a revolutionary leader in Mexican history. Okay, so in 1631, silver is found. So then what happens is even more people are going to come to Mexico to dig for silver, which was used in Spain's currency. Okay, so even more people from Europe are going to come over here. Now you're going to have three types of people, basically, or four types of people that's going to be working in this area. You're going to have people from Africa that were being sold. And at this time, believe it or not, guys, and this is what the author says. The author says that the African slaves cost more than the Native American slaves. This is what the author said in the book, guys. Because why? Well, because they basically had already understood the Spanish system. They had already been dealing with the Spaniards for a very long time. Okay? So they're going to be forced to work in harsh conditions. They're going to force Native Americans and Mexicans to work in these mines. So when they say Mexicans at this time, what they're talking about is the people that have Spanish blood, but they're born in the New World. Okay, I was trying to show you guys about the caste system. You got to understand these words and the way that words are used. If you don't understand words, if you don't understand words and how they're used, everything you think you do understand will only confuse you. So you had the Pensalores. That's the Spaniards born in Spain. Then you had the Creoles. That's the people born in the New World, but they are Spanish parents. Then you had the Mestizos. That's people that's born of Spanish and Native American parents. Then you had the people that was Native Americans, and then at the bottom of their system, you had the people, the darkest skinned people. Okay, when they're talking about, when the author is talking about, and he says that the harsh conditions forced Native Americans and Mexicans to work in his mind, what he's saying is that the Creoles and the Mestizos, the people who parents are the Peninsulores, they are going to be forced to work. So the people that were conquering the Americas are going to put their own children, their offspring, into this servitude, guys. All right, which is heavy. So this is part of the reason why Bartholomew de las Casas and certain people 100 years prior, when Columbus first took it over, they immediately was like, man, maybe we shouldn't, put these people into servitude. Why? Because you just had a better Native American woman. That's your offspring. Are the children going to be free or not be free? This is really the conversation that we're having. If you're going to take over this land, and then you reproduce with one of these people, your offspring, you're going to do this to your offspring. I want you guys to understand the mentality that we're talking about. Okay, all right, to understand how we don't make these mistakes moving further, because ultimately we're still making these same mistakes. When we have, not to get too deep, but when we have young people complaining about the cost of, okay, in fact, I'm gonna show you better than I could tell you. I'm gonna show you better than I could tell you, because I need you guys to stay with me. Okay, check this. Now think about what I just said about, or you're going to do this to your offspring, your children. Check this. Now this is in 2025. This is why I'm sharing this information. We don't got here. I'm trying to show you how we got here. The cost of living is insane. Everyone is talking about this. Okay,
So I'm in the process of finding a new place, and it doesn't make any sense how this world expects you to survive. Not only do they want the rent, which is an arm and a leg, but they want 3 months, 3 times the income, and then they want a deposit, and then gas is $6 a gallon, and I'm making $19 an hour, bro.
I'm gonna pause that and I'm going to show you guys this. Okay, if you're looking at my screen, hold on, where are we at? Here we go. If you're looking at my screen, this is from a website called marketwatch.com. Okay, and it's a 2002 versus 25 comparison. Okay, so from the year 2002 versus 2. Okay, and what they're going to show is that in 2002, minimum wage was $5.15. In 2025, minimum wage is $7.25, guys. Now, when I was talking about the encomienda system and I looked for a definition, is basically harsh labor conditions and excessive demands, and it was leading to widespread suffering and population decline among indigenous people. and it says that Spanish colonialists known as encomenderos were granted the right to demand tribute and forced labor from indigenous people living in specific territories. I'm sorry, let me share my screen. Okay, so this is the encomienda system definition. Why did I play that video of this guy? This guy is living, he doesn't even know it. He knows something's not right, but what he doesn't understand is that he is the offspring of the encomienda system. All of us are. Me too. Okay, we're living in a world that they designed to be this way. Who is they? The people that's doing what they doing. Okay, and the same problems that people were experiencing 100 years ago, thinking that I could go here for a better place, we're still experiencing it now. Let me show you.
Americans are leaving United States by the hundreds.
A lot of us think that what's going on is something new. That's the crazy part. When you don't know what happened before you got here, sometimes you could think that your idea is so new. And we even tend to think that because we have certain technology, that we're smarter than people who came before us. That's not always true, you guys. I hope you know that. I don't want you to look at the past and think that those people were primitive or they were not smart. All primitive really means is first. You were first. That's all it really means. Okay?
Americans are leaving United States by the hundreds. They are leaving United States. Americans are fed up.
Now, what?
They are fed.
Now, hold on. Now, let me pause it. Let me go back. And I hope I'm not going too fast for you guys, but I want to show how what was going on in the past affects us today. So they found silver in Mexico. Thousands of people began to flood Mexico to dig for silver, which was used in Spain's currency. So who are they talking about? People from Spain. So what was going on in 1631 where it's like things were so bad in Spain that people were willing to cross an ocean to go to the new world to try to make money? That's the same thing as like living in here and people saying it's too expensive here, let me go over here. After a while, guys, there's no place to go. I want you to understand that. Like, it's no place for you to go. We have to think and look at the bigger picture. But let me stay on topic, okay? The mines forced the workers to work around harsh metals, which would get into the lungs and cause illness. Now, that sounds like people that work in the mines now, right? Um, At this time, semi-forced Indians, blacks, mulattoes were all forced to work. Asians from the Philippines were also sent to these mines to work and dig for silver. So you have people from Asia, the people that would be considered Indians, meaning all that means is that doesn't have a certain look to it. I gotta stress that because the word Indian get thrown around. All that means is that's people that was already here. Then you got the people that's considered blacks. That's just a social class to mean really you're at the bottom of the caste system. That doesn't even dictate a country of origin. Okay. Then you have mulattoes. So they just group people together basically to say all people are not free. How do you know they're not free? Because they were forced to work. Then they got people from Asia. They sent them here too. Where did they get the people from Asia from? The Philippines. Okay. Then we have another Philip, and his mother, Sor Maria's, tried to amend slavery in Chile, Mexico, and the empire, but they are not successful. Why? Because the people who are part of their royal court are getting rich. They're getting so rich off of what's going on that they're not going to want to end the system. They're making so much money off of this, they're not going to want to end the system. Okay? They're not going to want to in the system. And people, if you're coming into the stream or if you see the stream, hit a like. Hit a like. It really helps with the algorithms. If you're on Instagram or you're on TikTok, make a comment. I would appreciate it. Sometimes I get so deep into what I'm doing that I don't. I just go into I just do what I do. But I would appreciate it if you show some love to the channel. Also, support our mission. You can donate to the Cash App. I'm giving a wonderful breakdown on the untold story of Native Americans. This is Andrés Reséndez book review. I'm a reader, to read a lot. And sometimes when I go into this topic, people get upset. I think that this stream might go another hour. That's how I'm feeling because I really want to break this down. We're doing a deep dive today. I have time today. Yes, indeed. I have time today. But like I say, I'm promoting justice for everyone, guys. I want to paint a bigger picture so that we can understand how we can make this world a better place. I'm really not promoting any type of discrimination or anything like this. I'm really just trying to give a historical breakdown of things that our people went through, that we are denied sometimes access to understanding. If we don't know who we are, if we don't understand that this is our land, that this is where we come from, if we don't understand how we're so interconnected, we're still going to be making the same mistakes that our ancestors made when they were, you get what I'm saying. They were not hip to what was going on, but we're hip to what's going on now. So maybe we can change it. Maybe we can make the world a better place, guys. What do you think? So back to chapter 5, okay? So in chapter 5, the next King Philip and his wife, his mother, Sor Maria's, try to amend slavery in Mexico and the empire, but they are not successful. Their entire empire was built on this forced labor, and to end this would end the wealth of Spain. And these issues are amended on paper, but in practice, the institution continued. So on paper, what they did was, let me turn the music down a little bit. On paper, what they did was they changed some things around on paper. But the reality is empire was built on this labor. So they tried to amend it. And then this is going to have far-reaching consequences because later down the road, Spain is going to lose a lot of power. Okay? Because it's different. You can't control people militarily and think that that's going to last. Okay? It's not going to last. Why? Because the society is going to break down. Okay? Now that's either true or it's false. So many native people thought that if they converted to Catholicism, they would not be enslaved. But even after generations, they were still being forced to work for the Spaniards and the offspring of the Spaniards. So they thought that if they converted, that things would get better, but it didn't get better. What does that remind me of? Us today. And not even like with religion. Some people think if they vote a certain type of way, it's going to get better. But what did it say? What did the author tell us? These issues are amended on paper, but in practice, it continued. And many people thought if they converted, that they would not suffer, basically. But even after generations, they were still forced to work. And they were forced to work. It never got better. Why? The author said it didn't get better because the entire empire was built on this. And to end it would end the wealth. Chapter 6. the greatest insurrection against the other institution. Okay, so they had the Pueblo Revolt of 1680, guys, and I'm talking about Native Americans. I'm talking about what happened here. Okay, this happened here. A lot of people don't know that this happened here. Okay, the Indians planned a revolt to drive these people out of New Mexico. Okay, they were successful to move them out of Mexico for 12 years. So what ends up happening in New Mexico is that they're going to gather all of these people up and they are going to force them to leave. They kick all of them out. But what ends up happening is all of this leftover teachings that they got from the Spaniards, and they have now weapons, horses, and things of that nature. The Native Americans are going to start hurting one another. So as a result, because the institutions became profitable, so they started learning that, okay, if I capture these people and I bring them over here, I would get paid for that. I would get reasons for that. So what we started doing, our ancestors, that is, we started selling one another to the descendants of the people that came from Europe for resources. Now this is why we gotta understand the past so that we can get out of this system. Okay, guys? We can get out of this. We can learn from the past, guys. Like we we don't understand how how we are living in a system that doesn't benefit us, guys. Okay? Now, I'm not saying it doesn't benefit us at all, because it does. So let me take that back. If we do benefit from it, but as a whole, a lot of our people are going to suffer, guys. A lot of our people are going to suffer, guys. So what ends up happening is that a new form of slavery continues where Plains Indians with horses begin enslaving Paiute Indians without horses and selling them to the Mexicans and Europeans. Okay. Native Americans begin enslaving other tribes who have not assimilated to using the horses and guns that the Europeans brought to the New World. Apaches, Navajos, and Comanches become the premier Native American enslavers on the plains out west, preying on the Utes and the Paiute Indians. Okay, now you can go and research this. This actually took place. The Native Americans enter into a brutal system of taking advantage of the people who don't have the resources that they traded for with the Europeans. Now, what does this remind me of? The same thing is happens today. The people who get technology from Europe or from China are able to employ people who don't get resources from them people. So the people that get technology, whether it's an 18 wheeler, whether it's some form of technology or business, or end up employing who? The people that don't have those access to resources. This same stuff goes on today in different ways, but it goes on today. Chapter 8, Missions, Presidios, and Slaves. So now we're going to talk about what was going on out west. Okay, let me do, 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 do. Okay. Okay, guys. So out west, Native Americans began enslaving other tribes who were not assimilated to using horses and guns that the Europeans brought to the New World. Apaches, Navajos, and Comanches become the premier Native American enslavers on the plains out west, preying on the Utes and Paiute Indians. So the Utes and Paiutes were not in close proximity, but the Apaches, Navajos, and Comanches, since they were on the border with Mexico, a lot of these people had already been going to war and had close proximity to these people. And then they are going to start acting like the very people that they were trying to resist. So they had what's called missions, presidios, and slaves. So now we're going to start talking about the Native Americans that existed in California and off the coast of California. Okay. So I want you guys to stay with me. I want you guys to stay with me. So these people, let me show you. Let me share my screen. So these people are the Seri Indians, and this picture was taken in 1895 to 1896. So this is even before, um, this is actually after, excuse me, what I'm actually, the time period I'm covering. So the Seri Native Americans, they're going to be forced to work in presidios. So presidios are like prison camps, basically. All right, this is what happened, guys. I mean, I know it's uncomfortable. I know it doesn't, you know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't feel good when people talk about this kind of stuff because it's painful. Why? It's painful, guys. And we have to learn what took place so that we can make the world a better place, guys. If we don't know what happened, we will have these behaviors and we won't know how we got here, okay? So these people that's on the screen, the series, they're going to try to resist the Spaniards for a lengthy time because of their location. Let me see if I could pull up. So these were some of the people that's in Sonora. Now, if you ever been out west, guys, now look at these people, guys. Okay, these people are out west. These people are going to try to resist the native, the Spaniards for a lengthy time. But then the Spaniards are going to use force to get the natives to convert to the way of life of the Spaniards. And then what happens? The Seri people and their families are going to be broken apart and they're going to be sold into what the author considers to be slavery. And then they're going to be forced to work at Papulo. The Seri people tried to escape, but the Spaniards had trapped them in a system off the coast of California. Were you taught this in school? Did they tell you this? Did they tell you this in school? I don't remember being taught this. So this is what's going to happen, guys. So these people are going to be put and forced to work, okay? And a lot of these people, that's what it is, the island of Tuberon. So these people are going to try to go away. They're going to try to flee. These people are going to try to get away from what was going on, guys, at this time period. But they're not going to be successful, okay? Now let me just look at the island of Islam. Let me say, oh man, doo doo doo. So this is, as we can see, right off the coast, guys. And then we also have Baja California, guys. All right. So the Seri people tried to escape, but the Spaniards had them trapped in the system of slavery off the coast of California. They tried to escape to Isla Tiburon and the Isla of San Esteban. The Series, the Apaches, and other natives held in chains and are enslaved by the Spaniards. Now we're going to go back. I mean, a little further along in the story. So we went from what was going on in the 1500s, 1600s, and now we're in the 1700s. So slowly the Spaniards started conquering more land. It wasn't overnight. It took them a very long time. A lot of times what the natives would do, they would try to move to an area where the Spaniards was not, and then the Spaniards would gain more ground. The diseases of the 1780s, such as yellow fever, smallpox, and other diseases, take out thousands of natives. So let me show you what smallpox looks like. And this is educational, and it's just, to show people some of the things that these people went through. Is not meant to make people feel hate or anything like that. It's just educational, guys. So when you see this is an example of smallpox. This is some of the things that the Native Americans was going through, right? And what the author says is that yellow fever, smallpox, and other illnesses. Now we don't even know what the other illnesses are. Other illnesses take out thousands of natives. Then chapter 9 is called contractions and expansions. So they realize, like, man, the way that we're ruling, they realize, like, man, the way that we're ruling is too much. It's too much violence. So you know what they did? They created what was called debt bondage. So they're going to say, hey, you owe me money. And so you're free, but you have to work for me until you pay me all of the money that you owe. Okay, I'm gonna show you how we got here. So contractions, meaning contracts, and expansions. So debt bondage becomes the new form of slavery. Then what happened was at one point in time, the natives. Okay, let me go back over here. I want to show you guys something. So the natives, the people that was resisting the Spanish, they end up having conflict with one another. So he touches on the Comanche Mexico Wars, spanning from 1821 to 1870. And it involved large scale raids by Comanche and their allies, the Kiowa and the Kiowa Apache, into northern Mexico. These raids were fueled by the desire for wealth, horses, mules, captives, and were exacerbated by Mexico's instability after gaining independence and the growing U.S. market for stolen Mexican livestock, meaning these cows, these type of things like that. The Comanche effectively controlled much of the southern Great Plains, including areas within Mexico, and their raids, and caused great devastation in northern Mexican states. So, okay, let me see if we can find some images of this. So what happens is the Native Americans are going to the the people who resisted the Spanish retained an identity of being not Hispanic. They kept their language, a lot of their cultures, even though they were victimized also. The people that was end up becoming the dominating presence in Mexico were they begin to identify with the invaders. Okay, so then and then they were actually mixing. So then they became to be Mexican basically means that you are a mestizo, a Creole, a Creoles, or a Pensalores. Okay, according to the casta system. All right. So this new form of bondage is going to become debt bondage. Okay, meaning that you owe people money. So then this is going to do what? It's going to intensify conflict between groups because people are going to they're going to try to buy their way out of a system that's dominating them. And so he tells this story of this guy named John Kenneth Turner, who is a journalist. So this journalist visits the Yucatan. Okay, so let me show you the Yucatan, guys. Okay, doo-doo-doo. Let me see if I can find a picture of that guy too. John Kenneth Turner. So this guy, John Kenneth Turner, is going to visit the Yucatan. Now, he wrote several books. One of his famous books is a book called Barbaras, Mexico. And he's going to talk about what was going on in the Yucatan at this time. Okay, guys? And he has a famous quote where basically what was going on in the Yucatan is that these people was being forced to pick this Heineken plant. Okay, and on this thing it says a mother and a child, and you see that they are labeled as being in slavery. So these people were being forced in the Yucatan, the indigenous people, to work sugarcane and these plants that produce goods. So when he visits the Yucatan and he pretends to be a wealthy investor because he was a journalist, he then comes back and he tells that slavery exists in Mexico, but they call it basically debt peonage. But it exists in the beginning of the 20th century. So that's the 1900s, guys. For reference points on my dad's side, his he was born in 1920. Okay, so that means around the time that my grandfather was born, these people were still going through this. Now imagine his grandparents was born during a form of slavery. So sometimes people like to say like this stuff was so long ago, forget about it. Is we're not going to forget about it, and it wasn't that long ago to us. Okay, it wasn't that long ago to us. All right, because we experienced this. So chapter 10, and we're wrapping this up. We're almost done. So thank you if you made it this far. Americans are going to start moving out west, meaning white people. And as a result, this is going to increase the native slave trade. Then debt was used to coerce Indians into a lifetime of servitude. Now hold on, guys. Let me go back to this.
Head up. They are parking their shit up, and Adios. I'm not even talking about the undocumented people or the immigrants. I'm talking about citizens, people who were born in this country. They are leaving this country. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. People who were born here, mommy and daddy born here, ancestors born here, they are leaving United States of America. And they are posting that shit online. They're putting that shit up. I'm gone.
Okay, guys. The reason why I want to connect, I want to tie it all together of what was going on back then and what's going on now, guys, because a lot of time, guys, a lot of time, guys, a lot of people don't really realize what is going on. So let me play this video. This is from a broadcast I did earlier today. Our family is affected because what if the man has to go out and work 70 hours and then he still has to sleep? After years of that, what happens? The wife says, babe, the kids don't see you enough, or I don't get to see you enough. You're always working. Her physiological needs are not being met. Okay, guys, we have to understand how things that we experienced in a past life per se, how it affects us today. Check this out. It talks about slaves are given brands on their face to distinguish them from slaves by just wars and Indians who were enslaved by other Indians. And what this made me think about was this. Now, this is before my time, but this was when Prince was in conflict with his labels and he wrote this word on his face. And it also made me think of this, how face tattoos, they've always been in existence, but you can see how the history of where we come from and the things that we experience, even with people who have been incarcerated, right? They're known for having these facial tattoos. So what I want to discuss is how we got here, guys. We gotta kind of understand how we got here. A lot of times we don't understand how we got here. So let me try to help, do my part. As always, guys, like I say, if you want to donate, please help support the mission. Donate via Cash App. That's it right there on the screen. This is the Untold Story of Native Americans. This is a book review by Andrés Reséndez. In fact, so you know that I'm not joking. This is the book right here, The Other Slavery. He's an author that was a professor at the University of California, and I think that it's a great read. Honestly, one of the best books that I read uh, last year. So check this out. We are the result of this, and so this is why certain people, we are put in a situation where it's a misunderstanding, it's a conflict, even though in all actuality we are at minimum cousins. And at maximum, if you really want to be honest, family. Now that's a deep topic, but a lot of people don't want to say that because, hey, if my family not treating me good, I'm not gonna rock with them either. But if you go back to what we were talking about, you would see that the Africans were being trafficked. You would see that the Africans were being trafficked to the New World also. Right. We are the result of this. And so this is why certain people, we are put in a situation where it's a misunderstanding, it's a conflict, even though in all actuality we are at minimum cousins. But see, we don't know that. We don't really know that. We don't really understand that. At least I speak for me. I didn't know that. Okay, I'm still learning. This book actually shed a lot of light on how we got here, and a lot of people are in what, debt bondage. That's what he said. He said that they created a new system. It wasn't about being in physical chains anymore. It was about money.
Country to live in. Everybody's doing great. Everybody's not doing great. 76% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Eight people out of 10 that are listening to your show fucking cannot pay their bills. And they're saving money. I'm like, what are you doing? Dude, you can't even pay your bills. Your problem is not how much money you have in the bank. It's like you don't produce anything. People need to be told the truth. People are not being told the truth.
Now, that's either true or it's false, you guys. Before we get all emotional, that's either true or it's false. So this is why people are polarized over this immigration issue, because a lot of people are looking at, when people are saying that they're coming to the United States for a better life, and I understand. But the American citizens are not able to obtain a better life. So imagine what they think when they hear that someone from another nation is coming to our nation for a better life. Okay, the cost of living in the United States. So the effects of what we have gone through is impacting us right now. And we don't really understand that, because a lot of us are not able to understand. We don't really realize that this game is nothing new.
The cost of living in this country is currently, it's not going to be, it is currently unsustainable. And there are people that they know this, but then they'll still look at somebody else that's struggling and then tell them they're not doing good enough. I want you to imagine somebody that makes $75,000 a year. That's a pretty high up wage in terms of like top earners in this country, $75,000 a year. And we're going to go through some things here. This is a person with no debt outside of a car. And please don't hit me with the, you can go buy a car for... Shut up, you can't. Shut up. Stop saying ridiculous things. An entry-level decent car is $30,000. So this person who puts $200 a month into insurance and they pay 5% into their 401k, because shut up, people should be able to put money into their retirement. Because if you're not doing it now, you're never going to get to start doing it later.
Why I played that video, excuse me, I was muted. Why I played that video is because Indians were coerced into um debt bondage. And what I want to discuss is, if you're working for money, guys, you're almost never going to be free, because what happens if you save a lot of money? Should I say it? I don't want to get too deep. I'm already really deep. We're already knee deep in it. We're already knee deep in it. But what I was going to say is that if you're working for money, you can always need more money because we don't control how much things are going to cost. All right. So in wrapping up the book, he talks about that the Americans are going to move out west, and this is going to increase the Indian slave trade. Then that is going to be used to coerce Indians into a lifetime of servitude. That's where I got stuck at, because that's so heavy that I had to go and start sharing past videos of how what he's saying has to be true. Okay, the canyon, the Chili, was a stronghold of Navajos and a focus point of these chapters from chapter 10 to 12. Okay, so the Navajos are being attacked by other Indian nations. So the Navajos are going to be severely weakened. And then this is the time that's going to go into right leading towards the Civil War. Okay, the United States military is going to help weaken, and then they're going to bring the Navajos into servitude. Northern California Indians were held as servants and forced to work on ranchos. Okay. Now, how many people ever heard of Vallejo, California? Vallejo, California is actually named after a guy named Salvador Vallejo, who owned the Rancho Petalamo, which is he owned the plantation out west. His story is really crazy. I don't even want to get into the things that was going on, but long story short, this guy is going to be uh trafficking Native Americans. Okay, Sacramento, Napa Valley, and surrounding areas were colonized by the Native Americans, but they were forced to work there, and then they ended up needed protection. Native American men during this time period, the 1840s, 30s, 50s, the 1800s, they're going to be beaten and unalived without any justice. Then they have this guy named John Bidwell, who is a notable figure of this time, who owned land and had what we call Indian slaves. Then he's going to talk about Clean Lake. And this place was home to thousands of Native Americans, and which were later colonized by the Europeans. Then we're going to talk about the Indian Act of 1850, which basically, according to the author, worked to further legalize the subjugation of Native Americans. Then we're going to talk about a new era of Indian bondage. Okay? A new era of Indian bondage, guys. And what was going on in this time period, guys. So now we're going to talk about Utah. Utah is a beast, okay? I've been to Utah. I've been out west. I've been to like where the Navajos live and stuff like that. I've been to all of the states on the mainland except those north of New York. So that's about 45 states. I've been to Puerto Rico, Colombia, Cuba, Jamaica, St. Lucia. Okay, so far as on the Western Hemisphere, I'm pretty well traveled. Okay, I've been everywhere throughout my country, and I've been to other nations too, and I know Puerto Rico is a territory, you guys. All right, so let's talk about the Mormons in Utah. Man, if you can hit like on the video, because I'm about to wrap it up, but this part is going to get really deep. Okay, all right, just go into it, Brian. Good. So California needed Indian labor. So first they are enslaving the Native Americans of California, called the Seri people. Okay, now the Seri people, they're going to force them into work camps. But then this guy named Brigham Young believed that slavery was a natural part of the human experience. His argument for this is that when Eve did not listen to God in the Bible, that she accepted slavery. And by eating the forbidden fruit, Adam agreed to slavery. All right, now I'm not trying to get into a religious argument. I'm just telling you what the author said, all right? The Mormons believed that the Indians were Israelites and called them Lamanites, who sinned and became a degraded people. So this is what these people believe. Loosely, by me not being an outsider and just understanding from what I read so far, all of the people that they consider to be sinners are the people that are black or non-white. Okay, white good, black bad. That's basically what their belief system is based on. Okay, so the Mormons believed that the Indians were Israelites and called them Lamanites, who sinned and became a degraded people. Now, this is in Utah, guys, and out west. The Mormons believed by Christianizing the Indians, their souls could be saved. The Mormons began trading with New Mexicans and other groups and taking captives. So they practiced slavery too. Okay, Charles Decker is said to be the first to trade slaves with the Indians, the first Mormon to trade with the Indians, okay? They rationalized this practice by stating that this practice had existed out west for centuries. So this guy named Pedro Leon Lujan and Brigham Young, who was the governor, come into conflict. The trial and conviction of Lujan made it so that the New Mexicans were restricted to trading Indian captives. Okay, so first I'm gonna bring up a couple of pictures right quick so that we could see a little bit more about some of this stuff that I'm talking about with some of these names, because I want you to put a name. So okay, so this is Brigham Young, okay, and this is who we're talking about when we're talking about people that was enslaving the Native Americans in Utah. All right, guys. Now, I'm reviewing Andrés Reséndez's book, and we're almost done. But this gets really heavy because they believe some trippy stuff. So okay, so they had this trial and conviction of this guy named Pedro Leon Lujan. And they made it so that the Native Americans were restricted to trading Indian captives. Then they had the guy named Chief Walcaro. So let me pull his picture up. Let me pull his picture up. Chief Walcaro. So this guy, Chief Walcaro, it says, was one of the principal Indian chiefs when the Mormons first entered this area in 1848. Feared from California to New Mexico, he was remarkably sly chief, daring horse thief, savage slave trader, furious enemy, admirable friend, and unprincipled lover. He became a war chief, unrivaled in his ability to lead his band with cunning, power, and fierceness. His name refers to yellow buckskin, nicknamed the Hawk of the Mountains and Napoleon of the Desert. He was an opportunist in the changing of the West. He was more notorious than great, more bandit than chief, without question, white and Indian alike. He was the West's greatest horse thief, stealing over 1,000 horses on one raid alone. His horse stealing adventures are legendary. The ill-fated Walker War began in July 1853 and lasted until May 1854. Every Mormon settlement was transformed into an unarmed fort. The final cost was upwards of 200,000 and many lives. Peace was concluded after a mile-long peace train under Brigham Young met the aging warrior on Chicken Creek. Born on the banks of, I don't know how to pronounce that river in Utah County, Walcaro was buried in a suspect tree of stone on the rugged eastern hillside above the little community of Meadow. Which, guys, I've actually been through these places too. Like, I'm not like, I've actually traveled these lands. Okay, so all right, getting back to the final chapters. So Chief Wakara loses. The Mormons control the slave trade, is what the author is getting to. The United States military starts an all-out war on the Navajos and removing them and relocating them. Now, what's interesting, on Netflix, they have a series about this too. It's called Primitive or something like that. They have a series on Netflix about this very topic that I'm discussing, if you think what I'm saying is false. Okay. Um, and this causes the Indian slave trade to continue and spread. Okay, the slavery and the other emancipation. The Civil War and the 13th Amendment on paper freed the blacks, but did not free the Asians or Indians. Okay, then he's going to talk about the Elk versus Wilkinson Supreme Court case. So he goes into a spiel about how the 13th Amendment helped free slaves on paper that was African in the Americas, but not the Native Americans. So let's look at Elk versus Wilkinson Supreme Court case of so that's Brigham Young, okay? So we're going to talk about what was going on. This is after, this chapter is called What Happened to the Native Americans, basically. So they had this case called Elk versus Wilkinson's. So here's a simplified version of the Supreme case. John Elk, a Native American, left his tribe and started living among white citizens in Omaha, Nebraska. He wanted to vote, claiming that he had become a U.S. citizen by just choosing to live outside his tribe and follow U.S. laws. But Charles Wilkins, his registrar, refused to let him register to vote, saying Elk was not a U.S. citizen. Main question: can a Native American become a U.S. citizen just by leaving their tribe and living like a U.S. citizen? What did the Supreme Court decide? The court said no. Just leaving your tribe and living in U.S. society doesn't make you a citizen. Why did they say that? The 14th Amendment says that anyone born in the U.S. and subject to its jurisdiction is a citizen. The court said Native Americans were not fully under U.S. jurisdiction. because they were considered members of separate tribal nations. So unless Congress specifically made Native American citizens through a law, they were not automatically citizens. What was the result? John Elk was not allowed to vote. The ruling denied citizenship to many Native Americans. It wasn't until the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924 that all Native Americans born in the U.S. were granted citizenship. Why is this case important? It showed how the U.S. legal system treated Native Americans as separate and denied them rights. It highlighted the limits of the 14th Amendment at the time. It was a major setback for Native American civil rights until the law changed decades later. Okay, so that's a simplified version of what was going on, guys. Stay with me. Can you stay with me? Okay, stay with me, because this is some heavy stuff. So that was in 1884. Okay. Then you had the slaughterhouse cases of 1876. So he goes into the law. Okay. Special Agent Julius K. Gray's report and Senator Charles Sumner argued that Indians and Navajos in New Mexico were still enslaved. Governor Robert B. Mitchell of New Mexico publicized the Peonage Act. Okay, so he goes into the laws. Okay, and when we're dealing with these laws, as they say, we are a nation of laws, right? We're governed by a living constitution. Most Americans are not taught any of this. We don't really know what's going on. So okay, so I'm gonna share my tab. So the slaughterhouse cases of 1873 and the civil rights cases of 1883 significantly limited the scope of the 13th Amendment. Although they more directly addressed the 14th Amendment, here's how each case contributed to restricting the reach of the 13th Amendment. The slaughterhouse cases, 1873, background. A group of butchers in Louisiana challenged the state law granting a monopoly to one slaughterhouse, claiming it violated their rights under the 13th and 14th Amendments. The ruling. The Supreme Court ruled that the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery and involuntary servitude, was intended only to eliminate the institution of slavery as practiced before the Civil War, not to address general labor or civil rights issues. I'm going to read that again. The Supreme Court ruled that the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery and involuntary servitude, was intended only to eliminate the institution of slavery as practiced before the Civil War, not to address general labor or civil rights issues. The court also narrowly interpreted the 14th Amendment, saying it only protected the rights associated with federal citizenship, not broader civil rights like the right to earn a living or be free from discrimination. Impact on the 13th Amendment. The court rejected the argument that monopolistic labor restrictions amounted to a badge or incident of slavery. This limited the 13th Amendment's power to be used as a broader tool for protecting civil rights or economic freedom. So, okay. Background. These were a group of 5 cases challenging the constitutionality of the Civil Rights Act of 1875, which outlawed racial discrimination in public accommodations like hotels, theaters, railroads. The Supreme Court struck down the Civil Rights Act of 1875. It ruled that private acts of discrimination were not prohibited by the 13th or 14th Amendment. The 13th Amendment, the court said, only applied to slavery and involuntary servitude and not to racial discrimination by private individuals or businesses. Impact on the 13th Amendment. The court denied that racial segregation or exclusion from public facilities was a badge of slavery. Basically, they were saying, like, okay, we can discriminate against you, but that's not the same as us enslaving you, basically. They were fighting to allow discrimination. Okay. The interpretation greatly limited the ability of Congress to use the 13th Amendment as a basis for civil rights legislation against private discrimination. Okay. The Peonage Act of 1867 explained. Full name: Act to abolish and forever prohibit the system of peonage in the territory of New Mexico and other parts of the United States. Date enacted March 2nd, 1867. Now, why am I talking about this? Why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because this is the system that was being used that was allowing people to be put into servitude, guys. They were trying to end people being put into servitude, is the point I'm getting at. So we had to talk about some of the laws. He finished the book talking about the laws, okay? Now, I know that this could be boring, but wait 1 second. One second. We got to bring it back to modern times. If you don't understand how we got here, nothing is going to make sense to you. Sometimes I gotta bring it back to what's going on currently, you know. If you don't understand what was going on, you're not going to understand. So check this.
More and more people are really struggling here in the United States to put a roof over their head. A lot of people are not able to qualify for apartments or purchase homes. They're having a hard time. They are becoming homeless. And a lot of people are even finding more creative ways to try and keep a roof over their head. Some people are even looking at storage units. Check this out.
Been living in my car. Now I'm living in a storage unit. I'm trying to get an apartment, but can't right now.
I'm at the storage unit and they give me a storage today. I'm feeling mighty proud of myself today, you know. Yeah, you can see the building right here. I ain't gonna really show everything, but yeah. I'm looking for the smallest storage unit. How much is the smallest? Just got the storage unit.
Hold up, guys. Hold up. This guy just went go get a storage unit, okay? Because of poverty, probably owing somebody money, okay? I'm trying to draw a comparison now. I'm about to land my plane, but we have to talk about how we got here. A lot of people don't understand how we got here.
And it's not even living anymore. It's just a recurring subscription. You pay to live, you pay to work, you pay to eat, you pay to sleep. Rent, more than half your income. Groceries, doubled within a year. Gas, insurance, bills, taxes. Damn near make money just to give it away. You're not living the dream. You're financing your own exhaustion. And their solution is budget better. Like you're out here.
Okay, guys. So I'm going to wrap this up talking about The Peonage Act. So the Peonage Act of 1867. Let me go back to my music right quick. Give me some background. The Peonage Act of 1867 explained that they were trying to end bondage, debt bondage. Peonage is a system in which a person is forced to work to pay off a debt, often under coercive or exploitative conditions. Though technically not slavery, it created conditions similar to slavery and was especially common in the Southwest and later in the South after the Civil War. People, often Black or Mexican laborers, were trapped in endless cycles of debt, legally bound to their employer, unable to leave or seek other work until the debt was paid, often a near impossibility, trapped in endless cycles of debt, legally bound to their employer, unable to leave or seek other work until the debt was paid, often a near impossibility. Key provisions of the Peonage Act made it a federal crime to hold or re-return someone to peonage. Made it a federal crime to hold or return someone to peonage. Nullified state laws or customs that allowed peonage. Empowered federal courts to intervene and prosecute violators. Was based on Congress enforcement power under the 13th Amendment. Legal significance. First major use of the 13th Amendment to criminalize forced labor beyond just chattel slavery. Provided the legal basis for future federal action against debt bondage, convict leasing, and other forms of forced labor. Reaffirmed that the 13th Amendment applied to more than just African American slavery, it also applied to any system of involuntary servitude, including for other racial and ethnic groups. Historical context and enforcement. In practice, enforcement was weak, especially in the post-Reconstruction South, where Black codes, vagrancy laws, and convict leasing created conditions very similar to peonage. The Department of Justice later used the Peonage Act during the early 20th century to prosecute cases involving forced labor of Black Americans and immigrant workers. The U.S. Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of the Peonage Act in cases like Bailey versus Alabama, 1911, which struck down state laws that effectively created forced labor through debt enforcement. What did it do? It outlawed debt-based involuntary servitude, peonage, based on the 13th Amendment. Why it mattered. Extended anti-slavery protections to labor systems resembling slavery. Legal impact. Gave Congress and courts power to fight involuntary servitude. Guys, that is my stream for today. But let's see what's still going on. I'd like to thank everyone that attended the live stream today. I hope that my review of this book was done justice. It is a lengthy read, you know. I think there is always room for improvement. So, you know, I would say that I give myself a decent score, but there's always room for improvement. But I hope that I was able to convey the message of what the book was about. I hope I went into detail enough, provided facts, I hope that this was constructive. I thank you for spending your time with me. As always, you can support our mission and donate via Cash App to Elaine Kim 29. This is the untold story of Native Americans. Also, I would like to say, see you in my next stream. Stay tuned. Moving forward, I plan to create a schedule that I'm going to post in my community. I'm going to see how I will balance this with my job, but I would like to stream at least 3 to 5 times weekly. I'm going to stream live a lot more often. I actually like live streaming better than long form videos at this point because I can just do a live stream and then repost my live stream and leave it up there for you guys. And live stream, guys, is really beneficial, not just for me, but for you too, because you get to learn as we're going. It's nothing like being in the moment. You know, it's nothing like being able to connect with people in the world. That's what life is about, guys. Life is about relationships. Now, what I would like to do is I would like to play a little bit of music to exit us out, clear the air, clear the vibration, and what these people went through and how they were able to get us here. These are my ancestors. So how my ancestors made it through this system is remarkable. I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Some people might look at that and say, "Man, they went through this and that." I look at it and say, "They survived. They were resilient." How many people would have just given up? Too many. So thank you for joining my stream, guys. I appreciate it. As always, my name is Brian. Subscribe to my Instagram, my TikTok, my YouTube, and I appreciate it. Thank you.